Time is the most valuable asset you have. Not money, not status, not material possessions, time. Because you can always make more money, you can always rebuild your reputation, but time only moves in one direction. Every second that passes is gone forever, and yet most people act as if they have an infinite supply of it. They waste it on meaningless distractions, on things that don't push them forward, on activities that offer nothing in return. And then they wonder why they feel lost, why they feel stuck, why they look back and regret the years that slipped through their fingers. You need to understand something fundamental. Every single day you are making an investment. Whether you realize it or not, your time is being spent just like money in a bank account. The difference is, with money you can check your balance. You can see how much you have left. With time, you don't get that luxury. You don't know how much is in your account. You don't know if you have decades left or just a few weeks. And yet people waste time as if it's infinite, as if they have some guarantee that they'll get to the things that really matter someday. But someday is a lie. It's the most dangerous illusion you could ever buy into. Someday is how dreams die. Someday is how people wake up at 60, 70, realizing they never really lived. They were always waiting for the perfect moment, always putting off the work, always assuming they had more time. But life doesn't wait. It keeps moving with or without you. So you have to ask yourself, what are you doing with the time you have? What are you building? What are you creating? Are you spending it on things that actually matter, things that contribute to your growth, your future, your purpose? Or are you throwing it away, handing it over to distractions, wasting it on people who don't value you, on habits that drain you? If you could put a price tag on each hour of your life, would you still be spending it the way you do now? Because here's the truth. The people who succeed, who achieve, who become something more, they don't have more time than you. They have the same 24 hours. But they understand something most people don't. Time is either your greatest weapon or your greatest enemy. If you use it well, it compounds, it multiplies, it builds momentum. If you waste it, it robs you blind, quietly, little by little, until you have nothing left. And it's not just about productivity. It's about presence, about realizing that every single moment is an opportunity to experience life fully, to engage with the world, to create something meaningful. Because if you're not present, if you're constantly distracted, constantly numbing yourself with entertainment, with cheap dopamine, with things that don't challenge you, then what are you really doing? You're letting time slip away without even realizing it. People often say they don't have time to do the things they truly want. Time to build a business, time to get in shape, time to develop their skills, to read, to grow. But that's not true. They have the time, they're just not using it wisely. They're spending hours scrolling through their phones, watching mindless content, engaging in conversations that lead nowhere. And then they wonder why they feel like they're running in circles, why life seems to be passing them by. You don't get to complain about not having enough time if you're wasting the time you do have. You don't get to feel frustrated with where you are if you're not willing to take control of how you spend your days. Because every decision you make, every choice, every hour you invest, it all adds up. And eventually you will either look back with pride, knowing you used your time to build something meaningful, or you will look back with regret, realizing that you gave it away for nothing. So don't assume that you'll figure it out later, that you'll get serious next year, that you'll start making better choices someday. Start now, right now. Be ruthless with your time. Guard it, value it. Use it in a way that makes you proud. Because the truth is, you don't just spend time, you trade it. Every hour you give is an hour of your life, gone. Make sure the trade is worth it. If you don't know what matters most, how can you expect to move forward? How can you expect to build anything meaningful if you're constantly pulled in 100 different directions, saying yes to everything, drowning in obligations that don't align with who you truly are? See, most people don't fail because they lack potential. They fail because they lack focus. They waste their time, their energy, their attention on things that don't matter, and then they wonder why they feel exhausted, frustrated, lost. You need to be brutally honest with yourself. What do you actually want? Not what other people expect from you, not what the world tells you should matter. What actually matters to you? Because if you don't define it, the world will do it for you. And the world doesn't care about your success. It doesn't care about your growth. It will fill your life with distractions, with noise, with endless demands that drain you. And before you know it, you'll have spent years chasing things that never really mattered in the first place. Priorities shape everything. They determine how you spend your time, who you spend it with, what you sacrifice, and what you fight for. And if you don't set them with intention, if you don't decide what's truly important, you'll end up prioritizing whatever is urgent, whatever is easiest, whatever is right in front of you. And that's a disaster, because the most important things in life are rarely urgent. No one is going to remind you to chase your dreams. No one is going to demand that you take care of your health, that you invest in yourself, that you build something meaningful. Those things don't scream for your attention. The distractions do. The quick dopamine hits, the mindless entertainment, the things that feel urgent but add nothing to your life. So you have to ask yourself, what do you actually value? What's worth your time, your energy, your effort? And once you know that, you have to defend it. You have to protect your time like it's your most valuable resource, because it is. If something doesn't align with your priorities, you need to be willing to walk away. You need to be willing to say no. And that's hard for people. They don't want to disappoint others. They don't want to feel like they're missing out. But you have to decide, do you want to be liked or do you want to be fulfilled? Do you want to be comfortable or do you want to be great? Because you can't have both. And that means you need to cut out the things that don't serve you. The meaningless obligations, the toxic relationships, the habits that keep you stuck. If something is not moving you forward, it's holding you back. There is no neutral. Every choice, every action, every minute you spend is either building your future or stealing from it. And the people who understand this, the people who take control of their priorities, they are the ones who win. Not because they're lucky, not because they have more opportunities, but because they refuse to waste time on anything that doesn't matter. And look, setting priorities doesn't just mean focusing on work or ambition. It means knowing when to rest. It means knowing when to spend time with your family, when to take care of your mental and physical health, when to disconnect. Because if you neglect those things, if you sacrifice everything for one single pursuit, you will burn out. You will reach the top and realize you have nothing left. And that's not success. That's failure disguised as achievement. So this is what you need to do. First, get clear on your top 3 priorities. Not 10, not 23. The things that truly matter to you, that you want to build your life around. It could be your career, your relationships, your personal growth. Whatever it is, define it, write it down, make it real, and then every single day ask yourself, are my actions aligned with my priorities? If the answer is no, something needs to change, because every moment you spend on something that doesn't matter is a moment stolen from what does. At the end of your life, you will look back and see exactly where your time went. You will either feel proud of what you built, of what you prioritized, of the life you lived with intention, or you will feel regret knowing you let distractions dictate your path. And that's a choice only you can make. Time is slipping away moment by moment, whether you acknowledge it or not. And the real tragedy, most people aren't losing time because they're working too hard or taking on meaningful challenges. They're losing it to nothingness, to distractions, to mindless indulgences, to habits that serve no real purpose. They waste it scrolling through endless feeds, arguing over meaningless topics, consuming junk content that numbs their minds instead of sharpening them. They waste it in cycles of procrastination, convincing themselves that tomorrow will be different, that they'll get serious eventually, but eventually never comes. And then one day they wake up years older, realizing that time has outrun them, that all the moments they thought were small, insignificant, easily thrown away, those were the very moments that determined their future. Because that's the thing about time. It doesn't just disappear, it accumulates. The way you spend your hours is the way you spend your life. And if you don't take control of it, if you don't consciously decide to eliminate the things that drain it, you will find yourself trapped in mediocrity, watching as others pass you by, wondering why you never became the person you were capable of being. But here's the hard truth. Eliminating time-wasting activities is uncomfortable, because most of the things that waste your time, they feel good in the moment, they're easy, they're designed to be addictive. Social media, mindless entertainment, excessive video games, useless gossip. They all give you an immediate sense of engagement, of distraction, of relief from whatever difficult task or uncomfortable truth you don't want to face. But what are they actually giving you in return? Nothing. You trade hours of your life for fleeting amusement, and in the process, you lose something much greater: progress, growth, meaning. And the worst part, most people don't even realize it's happening. They convince themselves that they're just taking a break, that it's just a little time here and there, that it's harmless. But add it up. How many hours a day do you spend consuming instead of creating? How many hours do you waste on things that don't bring you any closer to your goals? Be honest with yourself. If you tracked every minute you spent, you'd likely be shocked by how much of your life is slipping away into nothingness. So what do? First, you identify the biggest culprits: the habits, the distractions, the things that are stealing your time without giving you anything of real value. Maybe it's the endless notifications pulling you back into a world of meaningless scrolling. Maybe it's the comfort of watching others live their dreams while you sit back and do nothing about your own. Maybe it's the people in your life who drain your energy with negativity, with drama, with endless complaints that never lead to solutions. Once you see where your time is being lost, you need to make a choice. And it won't be easy, because cutting out time wasters isn't just about deleting an app or turning off the TV. It's about changing the way you operate, rewiring the habits that have kept you stuck. It's about choosing discomfort over ease, discipline over indulgence, and that requires something most people aren't willing to do. It requires self-control. But here's the reward. Once you start eliminating these distractions, you gain clarity. You realize how much time you actually have, how much potential you've been sitting on. You start using that time for things that matter: learning, growing, building, creating. Instead of numbing yourself with entertainment, you start engaging with the world, challenging yourself, pushing forward. And that momentum, that's what separates those who succeed from those who don't. Because success isn't just about working harder. It's about working smart. It's about making sure that your time, your energy, your focus is going to things that actually move you forward. And if you want to live a life of meaning, of achievement, of purpose, you have to be ruthless with your time. You have to guard it like your most valuable asset, because it is. Every wasted moment is a moment stolen from your future. So make the decision, cut the distractions, break the cycle, because if you don't take control of your time, someone else will. Time is a force that either works for you or against you, and the difference lies in how you manage it. Most people live reactively, constantly caught in a cycle of urgency, always feeling like there aren't enough hours in the day. But the truth is, it's not that they don't have enough time, it's that they don't know how to use it effectively. They let distractions dictate their schedule, jumping from one task to another without direction, never fully committing to anything. They confuse busyness with productivity, thinking that just because they're constantly doing something, they're making progress. But that's an illusion. Progress doesn't come from being busy, it comes from being deliberate. If you don't take control of your time, it will control you. It will slip through your fingers, leaving you overwhelmed, frustrated, and wondering why you never seem to get ahead. And that's where discipline comes in. Managing your time isn't about cramming as much as possible into your day. It's about structuring your life in a way that allows you to focus on what truly matters. It's about recognizing that not all tasks are created equal, that some things contribute more to your success than others, and that wasting time on low-value activities is a guaranteed way to stay stuck. You have to become intentional. You have to plan your days before they start, because if you wake up without a plan, the world will give you one, and it will almost never be in your best interest. You'll get pulled into distractions, other people's problems, meaningless tasks that drain your energy but give you nothing in return. But if you decide in advance how you're going to spend your time, if you break your day into structured blocks of deep, focused work, everything changes. Suddenly, you're not reacting, you're leading. You're in control. One of the simplest but most powerful ways to do this is by setting clear priorities for each day. Instead of writing a long, overwhelming to-do list that you'll never actually complete, focus on the few tasks that will make the biggest impact. The rule is simple. If everything is a priority, nothing is. You need to separate what is truly important from what is just noise. That means identifying the 1, 2, or 3 tasks that, if completed, will move you forward the most, and making those your main focus. But prioritizing isn't enough. You need to protect your time from distractions, and that requires discipline. Deep work, true, meaningful progress, only happens when you eliminate interruptions and give your full attention to the task at hand. That means shutting off notifications, putting your phone away, creating an environment that allows you to focus, because every time you switch tasks, every time you get distracted, you lose momentum. Your brain has to refocus, and that costs time more than most people realize. If you can master the ability to focus deeply, even for just a few hours a day, you'll accomplish more than most people do in an entire week. And then there's the concept of time blocking. Scheduling specific tasks for specific times, treating them like unbreakable appointments. If something is on your calendar, you do it. No negotiating, no pushing it off until later. Later is how things don't get done. Later is where progress dies. When you set a time for something and commit to it, you remove the decision-making process. So you don't have to wonder when you'll get to it, because it's already set in stone. And that kind of structure creates freedom. It frees you from the mental burden of constantly trying to figure out what to do next, and it ensures that what matters actually gets done. But structure alone isn't enough. You need to create urgency. Most people stretch tasks out far longer than necessary simply because they don't set limits. If you give yourself an entire day to complete something, it will take the entire day. But if you give yourself a strict, challenging deadline, you'll find a way to finish it in less time. This is why setting constraints is so powerful. Work expands to fill the time you allow it. The tighter the deadline, the more focused you become. And finally, you need to reflect. At the end of each day, ask yourself, how did I spend my time? Did I focus on what truly mattered, or did I let distractions take over? Because if you're not reviewing, if you're not actively assessing where your time is going, you have no way of improving. Success isn't about getting it perfect from the start. It's about constantly refining, making small adjustments, and staying committed to progress. In the end, time management isn't about squeezing more into your day. It's about making sure your days are spent on the right things. And if you don't take control of that now, if you don't learn to manage your time with intention, you will wake up one day and realize that life has passed you by while you were too busy to notice. If you want to change your life, if you want to rise above the mediocrity that traps so many people, then you need to make a fundamental decision to invest in your own growth. Because growth doesn't happen by accident. Productivity doesn't emerge from thin air. You don't wake up one day suddenly capable, suddenly successful, suddenly disciplined. These things have to be cultivated, and they require a level of commitment that most people simply aren't willing to give. But that's why most people stay stuck. They want improvement without effort. They want success without sacrifice. And that's not how the world works. You have to ask yourself, what are you doing right now to become better? Not tomorrow, not next week, not when life feels easier or more convenient. Right now, because every day that passes is either moving you forward or leaving you behind. And if you're not actively growing, you're stagnating. There is no standing still. The world moves with or without you. And if you're not keeping up, if you're not developing your skills, your knowledge, your discipline, then you're falling behind. But growth isn't just about acquiring knowledge, it's about applying it. There are plenty of people who read, who watch, who listen, but they never do. They consume information endlessly, convincing themselves that they're learning, that they're improving. But in reality, they're stuck in a loop of passive consumption. Growth comes from action. It comes from struggle, from discomfort, from pushing yourself beyond what feels easy. It's in the moments where you feel resistance, the moments where you're tired, where you doubt yourself, where quitting feels like the best option. That's where real growth happens. And this is where productivity ties in. Because it's not enough to just develop yourself, you have to use that development to create something, to contribute, to build. Productivity isn't about being busy. It's about making progress towards something meaningful. It's about setting goals that stretch you, breaking them down into concrete actions, and then executing on them relentlessly. And this requires systems, habits, routines that keep you moving forward even when motivation fades. Because motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. But discipline, that stays. And it's discipline that drives productivity. Most people wait to feel inspired before they act, but that's completely backward. Action creates inspiration, not the other way around. If you sit around waiting for the perfect moment, you'll be waiting forever. The perfect moment doesn't exist. What exists is the choice to start right now with whatever you have, wherever you are. And once you push yourself into motion, you'll find that momentum builds. The hardest part is always the beginning, but once you commit, once you prove to yourself that you're capable of doing the work, that's when things start to shift. So how do you actually invest in growth and productivity? You start by taking ownership of your learning. That means reading books that challenge you, surrounding yourself with people who push you to be better, seeking out experiences that force you to adapt, to think, to struggle. It means developing skills that make you valuable, that give you leverage in the world, and it means being ruthless with your time. Cutting out the distractions, the mindless entertainment, the habits that drain your energy without giving anything in return. Because growth and productivity require focus. And focus is something you have to fight for every single day. And then once you've built that foundation, you start applying what you've learned. You start creating. You start executing. You don't just think about your goals, you act on them. You set clear targets, you track your progress, you refine your approach when things don't work, and you never stop. Because real productivity isn't about working yourself to exhaustion. It's about being consistent, about showing up every day and doing the work even when it's difficult, even when you don't feel like it. The truth is, the people who succeed aren't necessarily the smartest. They're not the most talented. They're the ones who really decide that they're going to make something of themselves, and then they back that decision up with action. They commit to growth, to productivity, to building something meaningful with the time they have. And in the end, that's what separates those who accomplish something in life from those who merely exist. Because the time will pass anyway. The question is, what will you have to show for it? Time is the most finite resource you have. You can't buy more of it. You can't negotiate for extra hours in a day. Once it's gone, it's gone. And yet, most people treat it as if it's unlimited, as if there's always more waiting around the corner. They let days slip through their fingers, filling them with distractions, procrastination, half-hearted efforts, and meaningless busyness. And then they wonder why they aren't making progress, why they feel overwhelmed, why their goals always seem just out of reach. The reason is simple. They haven't learned how to manage their time effectively. The first thing you need to do is take responsibility. If your days feel chaotic, if you constantly feel behind, it's not because time is against you. It's because you haven't structured it properly. You have to stop letting time control you and start controlling your time. That begins with clarity. Most people wake up without a real plan, drifting from task to task, reacting to whatever comes their way. But if you don't have a plan for your day, you'll be at the mercy of whatever distractions or demands pull at you. You need to decide in advance what matters most. Start by setting clear, specific goals, not vague ideas like be more productive or get things done, but concrete objectives, things you can measure. Break them down into steps. Know exactly what needs to happen today, this week, this month. If you don't have a target, you'll waste time wandering aimlessly, confusing activity with progress. And the moment you define what truly matters, you'll realize how much of your time has been slipping away on things that don't. Once you have your goals, you need to schedule your time ruthlessly. One of the biggest mistakes people make is thinking they'll get things done when they have time. But time doesn't just appear. You have to make space for the things that matter. Block out time in your day for deep, focused work, for the most important tasks. Treat those blocks as sacred. No distractions, no interruptions, no last-minute changes. Because every time you break your focus, every time you let something else take priority, you're allowing your most valuable resource to be squandered. And when you work with intensity. Most people don't have a time problem, they have a focus problem. They spread tasks out, taking far longer than necessary because they let themselves get distracted, jumping between emails, notifications, social media, conversations that go nowhere. But the brain isn't built for multitasking. Every time you switch tasks, you lose momentum. If you want to get more done in less time, you need to commit fully to one thing at a time. Turn off the noise, set a time limit, push yourself to work faster with urgency. You'll be amazed at how much more you accomplish when you eliminate all the little interruptions that slow you down. Another key to time management is learning to say no. This is hard for people because they don't want to disappoint others. But every time you say yes to something unimportant, you're saying no to something that actually matters. You can't do everything. You can't please everyone. You need to protect your time like your life depends on it. Because in many ways it does. If something doesn't align with your goals, if it's not helping you grow or move forward, be ruthless in cutting it out. And then there's energy management. Because time isn't just about the number of hours in a day, it's about the quality of those hours. If you burn yourself out, if you're constantly exhausted, your time becomes useless. You need to structure your day in a way that aligns with your natural energy levels. Do your hardest work when you're at your peak. Take breaks strategically, not as a form of avoidance, but as a way to recharge. Get enough sleep, exercise, eat properly, because a sharp, focused mind is the greatest time management tool you'll ever have. Finally, at the end of each day, take a moment to reflect. What went well? What could have been better? Where did you waste time? If you're not actively reviewing and refining your approach, you're just running in circles. Improvement doesn't happen by accident. It happens by consistently analyzing, adjusting, and committing to doing better. Time management isn't just about being productive, it's about taking ownership of your life. It's about ensuring that the days you live are meaningful, that they aren't wasted in distraction and regret. If you don't take control of your time, someone else will. And if you let that happen, you'll wake up one day wondering where it all went. Don't let that be your story. Take control now. Time is the one resource you can never get back. Every day that passes is a day you will never live again. And yet, so many people let it slip through their fingers, caught in cycles of distraction, procrastination, and wasted potential. But life isn't something that just happens to you. It's something you shape. It's something you build. And that starts with taking responsibility for how you spend your time. You have to understand its value. You have to set clear priorities, cutting away the things that don't serve you, that hold you back, that steal your energy without giving anything in return. You have to eliminate the trivial distractions, the endless scrolling, the meaningless busyness that tricks you into thinking you're making progress when in reality you're just standing still. You have to master the art of managing your time with intention, structuring your days, protecting your focus, and working with discipline, not just when you feel motivated, but every single day. And above all, you have to invest in growth. You have to commit to learning, to improving, to becoming more than you were yesterday. Because time isn't just about filling hours with activity, it's about what you become in the process. The world doesn't owe you success, it doesn't owe you progress. Those things belong to the people who are willing to take control of their time, who refuse to waste it, who pour it into something meaningful. So ask yourself, what will you do with the time you have left? Because the days will pass either way. The question is whether you will look back and see a life of purpose, discipline, and achievement, or a life of wasted moments and lost potential. The choice is yours. And you have to make it now.